Two dicks, wow.
Yeah! Here we go! Here we go! Here we go!
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 1IQ Football Talk podcast.
And having to go, yeah, but he did kind of do this.
What I'm hearing is you just want Tom Brady dead. Like, that's all I'm hearing at this point. You just want Brady
Well,
dead.
not anymore. He's retired now, so I'm good with that. I don't want him calling games anymore because holy hell, he's hard to listen to.
Enough angry and, depressing from myself. Sterling, thank you for being able to sit there as my therapist for this episode.
Start the game already!
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 1IQ Football Talk podcast. Brendan and Sterling coming at you for yet another week in the world of football. Not as quiet as it was last week, for instance, but it's still fairly quiet in the football atmosphere right now. And obviously, we're kind of in that small little dead zone before the draft. But ultimately, buddy, how you doing today?
Doing good. Like you said, it's been a slow week. I think this is the first week, even last week there was stuff to talk about with people. This is the first week I don't think I had a single football conversation with anybody. Everybody's just talking about baseball starting and hockey coming up to the playoffs and all that. So
Yeah, it's a weird time in the football world because there is things that are going on, but it's not really things that are worth spending a ton of time talking about. Like we could sit back every single week and go like, oh, we could talk about this player meeting with this team and this and that, and ultimately it could be a situation of where we go, oh, this player met with this team, they could be looking to draft him, and they have multiple opportunities to do so and they just never do it, and that sort of thing. And so yeah, but a few bit of tidbit news this week. Obviously the owners meeting happened down in Florida this week, and one of the big things that was talked about was the tush push and how the Green Bay Packers and their loser organization is trying to get that play banned because they think they can't stop it. And again, like I think you and I are very much in the same boat in this party, where it's people saying they want to ban this play because they think it's an inherent risk to player safety. We haven't shown any data to say that it's a dangerous play. Is it an ugly play? Yeah, it's not pretty, but there are a bunch of plays. For instance, just a run up the middle that goes for 1 yard. You can't tell me that play is better looking, for instance, than a tush push. Like, yeah, it might go onto the side of, oh, well, it's more of a rugby play. Well, guess what? Rugby and football were basically the same sport up until 100 years ago.
yep. And I mean, I would argue it seems to be safer than a regular quarterback sneak because we haven't seen the injuries coming up from the tush push that we do from a regular quarterback sneak. I mean, keep in mind, that's how Patrick Mahomes had his leg destroyed that 1 year. And, several other quarterbacks have had concussions and broken arms, broken legs. Like, the QB sneak is more dangerous than the tush push at this point. Teams are just angry because their defense can't find out a way to beat it because you have to get so low and get below the offensive line, and it's hard to do that. But find a way to beat it or just suck it up. Like we said, we talked about this, I think, about 6 weeks ago, where we both said, like, the only way you really can justify banning it is if the Philadelphia Eagles go out there and they just run the tush push every single play and just 3 yards each play, first down every time, get a touchdown, chew up 11 minutes of each quarter and do it that way. Then the league will be like, yeah, this is boring, we're stopping this. But as it stands, I don't see a player safety issue. The only, I think, injuries we've seen have been on the defensive side, and that's from guys doing dumb things to try and stop it, like just, being Tua and running at them with their helmets down. And it's like, yeah, you're going to hurt your neck doing that. Be smarter.
Yeah, I just look at this entire thing and I go, the Eagles found a play that they can run. And here's the thing. There's enough film on it where it's been around for the good portion of 2 years, where every organization can look at it and go, you know what? Why don't we run it? And guess what? The Eagles just run it better than everyone else. We saw Josh Allen try to run it. We've seen other teams try to run it, and it's simple. The Eagles found a way to get it done right. And I I just constantly sit back and say to myself, it's just one team having such good level of success about it. Like I look at it like this. There's going to be a time where we're gonna have a wide receiver that runs a 4-1, a 4-1 flat. And he's just
Yep.
going to be faster than everyone else. He has good hands, and it's basically going to be like, doesn't matter what you guys do. If you line up anywhere close to him in 10 yards, he's going to blow by you. What's the NFL going to do at that point? Are they going to simply ban the go route because this one team is just better than everyone else at it? Like I football is not a cuddle game. It's not a game where you go out there and try to just have good sportsmanship. And now granted you want that and all that, but it's a violent game. It is gladiator style sports. It's like to we always say we want to see the game be as safe as humanly possible, but at the same time, you still need to let football be football because you have the best athletes in the world going after each other. It's a physical game. That play, it's a rugby play, sure, if you want to argue that, but guess what? Rugby is a safer game than football, so it's probably safer to run that sort of play. Now, again, like what you were saying, if the Eagles were going out there and running that play every single time, and it's just first down 3 yards, second down 3 more yards, third down 3 more yards, and they go for it on fourth down and get it, well, then yeah, you're gonna ban it because it's just gonna be okay. You have an unstoppable play. It's just taking away the inherence of the game.
Yeah.
But they're not doing that. They're running
Nope.
it maybe 3-4 times a game. And it just works for them, man. It just works.
Well, exactly. They're running it as often as other teams run quarterback sneaks or those quick draw plays to on 4th and 1. The quick runs up the middle to try and get the first down. It's the same rate as those other plays. It's just more successful because they've mastered it. And as you said, they've got a 2-year head start on other teams. I'm sure, if guys like like Josh Allen hit the gym, build up those leg muscles, and they practice it for a season, then they'll start getting good at it.
Yeah.
That's just it. It's like any other play, you gotta work at it to make it work.
Yeah. I understand where people are coming from when they're not saying it's it's a play that doesn't look like football, or if it's a non-injury type of play where people go, you have a situation of where you have players on the offensive side of the ball where they're allowed to push the ball carrier, but on the defensive side of the ball you can't do that. I can kind of understand where they're coming from with that side of the ball, but it's also one of those things of where you have just as many guys on the opposite side that can get pushed. Now, again, it's an ugly looking play, but the whole argument of, oh, it's an unsafe this or unsafe that, I just look back at it and go, like, guys, like, if you want to just, like, you might as well just go out there and simply say the Eagles are too good at it and we don't want the Eagles to have this advantage.
Yeah, there's no evidence that is an unsafe play, and that's just it. Once teams do figure out a way to stop it on occasion, the thing with that tush push, because there are so many guys at that line of scrimmage, if you're able to get to the quarterback and knock that ball out somehow, it's going to be a free ride all the way to the other end zone because everybody's in that pile. All it takes is one cornerback to be, lurking around, grab that ball, and he's going to have a free run all the way to the end zone. So, like, it just will take a little more effort on teams preparing for it and planning for it. And we see it all the time. Plays come in and they seem like they're almost broken, and eventually some defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator figures out a way to stop it, and then it stops being so dominant. And that's what'll happen here. Eventually, somebody's going to figure out the setup that you need in that front seven, how to line them up so that the push isn't that effective. So it basically hits that wall. And so once that happens, it's not going to be as dominant of a play.
Yeah, I just think it's like I use the analogy of there's going to be a wide receiver someday that runs in the 4.10s, runs a 4.10 flat, has really good hands, has really good route running, and he's just going to be able to just go route. He's going to break 3,000 receiving yards one year. It's just going to be unbelievable. And like, what's the NFL going to do at that point? Oh, you can't do this because like it's essentially the
Exactly.
same thing.
Well, I mean, and we've seen it throughout history with other players, like Steelers fan, Ben Roethlisberger, always back in that pocket, and he's stiff arming guys and throwing them to the ground while staying in the pocket and pump faking guys and shit. And it's like, at any point does the league go, okay, well, if you're quarterback, you can't stiff arm and you can't
Yeah.
pump fake because it's embarrassing guys too much. You're making it look too easy out there because he did. He was one of those guys that made it absolutely look so easy back there, just shrugging sacks away, and they didn't ban that.
At this point, why are we not talking about Lamar Jackson having his third 1,000-yard rushing season where it's like, oh, he's too athletic, he shouldn't be allowed to scramble like that. Like
Right?
it's
Or Patrick Mahomes and how he always runs down the sideline and then just stays in that half second longer so he can
get
step
the
out as
flag.
he gets hit and take the flag. It's things like there's so many plays in the NFL where, yeah, it's maybe a little bit unfair, maybe a little bit of an advantage to the team that's got that player, but these guys get paid so much money. Stop them.
Yeah.
Don't whine and complain and cry about it. Stop them.
Yeah, it's to me this whole conversation about it. I just continuously go back and look at it and go, man, it just seems like the teams that voted to ban this play, and now granted the vote wasn't official, they officially moved it back to I think like May to have like the official ruling on it, but the teams that did vote to ban it, I just sit back and I go like, what are you doing? Like and this goes towards the Bears as well, because the Bears chairman George McCaskey, he voted to ban the play, and I just look at it and go, man, like if this was your team and Jalen Hurts was able to run that for the Bears, you wouldn't be trying to ban it. Like I just
Right?
get so annoyed. It's a play that a team runs better than everyone else, and everyone last year tried to replicate it, and no one could do it as well as the Eagles, and so people are just going out there, we should ban it. It's not football. It's as football as football can get, boys. It's
Right.
right along the lines.
Yeah. Nobody tried to ban the wide receiver screen when Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill were just burning everybody with it. Instead, everybody started trying to do it and realized they couldn't do it as well.
Yeah.
But eventually it's not going to work. Jalen Hurts is going to get a little bit older. He's not going to be able to have as much muscle there, and it's not going to be as effective. And like I said, there's going to be a D coordinator out there that figures out a way to
To get it
stack
done.
that box properly so that when they push, it just doesn't budge.
Yeah.
It'll
And
happen.
and not only that, it's not necessarily just Jalen Hurts and Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley pushing. It's also the offensive line in front of them.
Hmm.
Because again, the Eagles, how long have we been saying now for the last what 6-7 years? The Eagles O line has been the best in football.
Yep.
Like again, get a better offensive line if you're upset that you can't run the play that effectively. Get a better
Or,
offensive line coach.
right? Or maybe the solution to stop it is you go, oh, they're running the tush push. Let's put our offensive line out there instead of our defensive line because they're used to doing that same style of push, and we just have a straight up rugby scrum is what it
Yeah.
turns into, and that's what'll happen. It'll happen eventually. It may be as early as this coming season. We'll see somebody try something unique. They'll throw out a couple of guards and a center, on that D line to try and just stop it a bit, and it'll work. And all of a sudden, there will be this aha moment for all the other teams going, okay, when it's 4th and 1, we know they're going to run the tush push. Just
Send
keep
out the
doing that.
boys.
Eventually, they'll stop calling the tush push, and you go back to the old ways.
Yeah, it to me, I've always thought that this entire idea was just ridiculous. It's just dumb. I
Hmm.
again, like we've talked about this ban before, but again, this whole conversation this week was about the actual trying to get that one done, and I just think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Some of the other things that we heard this week, we heard a couple of owners talking about certain players on their team and their contract situation, and making it sound really, really dumb the way they're doing it, and basically going about bad business. And the first one, and this was the big one because it made a lot more news because, again, it's the Dallas Cowboys and talking about Micah Parsons. So Jerry Jones went out there. Someone asked him about the contract situation. Jerry Jones just simply said, it's not that much of our priority. That's already a really dumb thing to go out there and say that your best player on your team in his contract negotiation isn't a priority. Like the Bears or general manager Ryan Pace was asked, is Kyler Gordon, our nickel corner, a priority to get that contract down? He goes, yeah, this is a massive priority for us. He's one of our best defensive players. Of course we're going to have him be a priority to get this done. And Jerry Jones proceeds to go, I don't even know Micah Parsons' agent's name. While Micah Parsons has one of the most respected agents in football. You're like, sure, you don't need to know, like us, like guys like us, we don't need to know the names of every player agent out there. Like, I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but I'm also not the guy talking with him about a client that is contracted to my team who happens to be one of the best defensive players in all of football right now.
Well, exactly. And you've been having contract negotiations, so you've been having discussions with him, which means you've had meetings on the books with his name written there. I mean, it is possible that Jerry Jones is so old and senile at this point that he doesn't remember the guy's name.
Yeah,
it's very possible, but it's this wave of stupidity that's taking over America right now. And those comments from Jerry Jones, it felt like it was the same sort of thing that Donald Trump would have said. It's the same bullshit. And so it didn't shock me that much. It just surprised me that, somebody doesn't rein him in and be like, just don't say anything. Saying nothing would have been better in that situation. Just be, yeah, I'm not commenting on that.
Yeah.
That's a better statement than he's not a priority.
You could have walked out there and said, you know what, the focus right now is not on that contract situation. It's something that we will be looking forward to doing, but this week it's not that of what our main focus is here at this point, and we're just not going to make a comment on it. And again, you and I think, are in the similar boat because I know we have both done it in a game like Madden, where we will often always try to get a contract done with a player that we like on our team as quickly as possible, because down the line it might seem like a high-end contract, but the longer you wait, the more expensive it gets. I look back to last offseason when Jamar Chase was up for a contract negotiation and he was trying to get that stuff done. If the Bengals would have signed him to a contract last offseason to the deal that he wanted, they probably would have saved money because, again, he didn't have a triple crown on his resume. That triple crown, boom, that's an extra $5 million per year on that contract. And I always sit back and say it's better to do it early than to do it later, because if you do it later, it's only going to cost you more if that player is good. And I, for instance, I look at the Steelers and TJ Watt.
Yep.
The Steelers, if they would have gotten a contract done with TJ Watt, let's say back in January, well, he wouldn't be a guy that's going to be making $40 million a year. Once Myles Garrett signed that contract, it screwed over the Steelers. It screwed over the Cowboys. Like, it just made it more expensive.
It screwed over the whole league.
It did.
Yeah. Because anybody, when they've got their top edge rusher coming up on contract now, they're going to be wanting a substantial pay raise.
Yep. Now, there's going to be a bunch of guys that are out there that aren't going to demand that $40 million, but the average edge rusher is now going to get 30.
Well, exactly. That's just it. You're going to see guys that are, the 25th, 26th best edge rushers in the league going, oh, well, now I get current TJ Watt money at 30 million instead of the 18 to 20 that I would have gotten before this Myles Garrett contract. But I mean, that's the Browns just screwing up the market as they do.
Yeah, and like, again, Jerry Jones and the Jones family, people want to keep saying, oh, the Cowboys are America's team. Yeah, they're the team that America makes fun of the most. Like, they're America's punching bag because everyone just laughs at the Cowboys organization. another organization that decided this week to call out a player on their defense that's this particular player not up for renegotiation, but you would rather get a contract done now as opposed to going into the final year of his deal, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals and Trey Hendrickson, where the owner of the Bengals came out and stated, "We have given him a contract. He should just be happy with the contract." And I go, the dude has already requested a trade from your organization. He has been your best defensive player the second that he's gotten there. He's been with the team for 4 years now. He's had 3 seasons with your team where he's double-digit sacks. The last 2 years, he has 17 and a half sacks in both seasons. We've been saying this. When Trey Hendrickson announced that he requested a trade, we both said, Bengals, get the deal done now. Like, don't hesitate anymore. Like, you cannot afford to lose him, because if you lose him, both of us sat back and said he was the clear defensive player of the year. Yep. That was, we both can sit back still to this day and say Pat Surtain should have never gotten that over Trey Hendrickson. And now the owner of that team is sitting back going, he should just be happy with the deal that we gave him. It's like, what are we talking about? Like,
right? Like, and you look at that team, and it's like, great, you have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and you guys were scoring over 30 points a game last year. That was great. Except your defense was allowing over 40 points a game last season.
Yeah.
And you let Trey Hendrickson go, and all of a sudden, we might see a defense on that field where every game, it's pushing 50 points that they're allowing, which is going to make it that much harder for Joe Burrow to win enough games to win that division or even make the playoffs.
Yeah. Like, it's good that they got the T. Higgins and Jamar Chase deals done, because they needed to get those deals done. Like, those two guys are guys that you can't really afford to lose, because if you lose either of those guys or both of those guys, well, you lose your starting quarterback. You lose one of the top 2 best quarterbacks in the game, because he's just going to say, well, you guys don't want to help me, then I'm not going to help you. Yep. And it should be the same situation where the Bengals look at this and go, we have our main pieces on our offense. We need to lock up one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. I know during our pre-show meeting, we kind of talked about the Trey Hendrickson. I think he's a top 5 edge rusher in the NFL. The last few years, he's been productive. He has had multiple seasons of 10 or double-digit plus sacks. And again, the last 2 years of 17 and a half sacks, that shows me that you're in elite company. It's not just a one-year type situation. And we've been saying with this upcoming draft, if the Bengals draft all defensive players and they get 3 competent starters, that defense then goes from being a bottom feeder defense to something in the top 20. And if they have a top 20 defense, they're a playoff team that is competing for a Super Bowl.
100%, and with the decisions the team is making, it makes you wonder if they're even going to draft properly when it rolls around. And you let Trey Hendrickson go, and then it doesn't matter if you hit on 3 of those guys. It's still going to be a rough season on defense,
Yep.
And I've had people talk to me, as always, the Bengals are the best team in that division. The Bengals are going to run away with that division. And I'm like, I would agree with you if I didn't think their defense was going to allow 40 to 45 points a game. Because, yeah, Joe Burrow's great. He can score 30, 35 a game. But as we always say, if the other team's scoring 45, it doesn't matter how good you are on offense. It doesn't matter if you're breaking records and, having an MVP level season. If your defense is just allowing the other team to walk out there and march down and match every score you make, what's it for?
It's like the reverse Pittsburgh Steelers, where they're defense, and it's like, oh, like we can only allow a team maybe 21 points per game, which is really, really good. How much is your offense putting up? Offense?
9.
The Steelers are literally going, offense? Come again, please? Like, offense? Yeah. What's that? Like, it's literally the reverse. But again, I would personally take the offense that can score a lot of points consistently as opposed to the defense, because again, at any given day, if you can score consistently 30 points, you're putting yourself in a damn good position to win a lot of games. even if your defense is really bad. Again, the Bengals this year had no right being 9-8. And yeah,
That's how bad their defense was. That's the unfortunate thing.
yeah, if like I said, if they had a top 20 defense, they were a playoff team. Joe Burrow 100% would have been the MVP, and they
Mhm.
probably would have competed in the AFC Championship game. Like
Oh, I
that's
know.
how
It's
good of a team they
crazy.
were. Or offense.
We've talked about it, and it's funny. If we were to mash the Bengals offense and the Steelers defense together,
Oh,
that team would be completely undefeated and for probably 2 to 3 seasons.
yep.
It would
Unstoppable.
outdo the Patriots dynasty that we saw and what the Chiefs are doing right now because it would just be unstoppable on both sides of the ball.
Hmm. Like that is what dream teams are made of. Like we
Right?
talk about how the Eagles have an unbelievable roster. If you take the Steelers defense and combine that with the Bengals offense, I don't think they lose in I don't think they lose more than 2 games over a 3-year span.
Exactly.
Yeah, like we're talking about a team that could potentially have 2 undefeated seasons
Yeah.
with Super Bowls.
I know. It's absolutely insane. That's how good that offense is and that defense is. It's just nuts to think about. And both those teams just can't figure out how to balance and get it right. It's like, great, you're really good on one side of the ball, but there's a whole other half of the game we
Hmm.
have to play.
You know what? One thing we should do down the line when we're kind of starting to get into some of these more dead periods is we should just take the all-star team from each division and just ultimately discuss and be like, which division do we think would ultimately win if we just had all the best players from each of the division and just put
Yeah.
them head to head like that?
Do,
That's
do
something
all division teams instead of, all like
all-star team or just
all-star
like
teams.
yeah, Pro Bowl team. Yeah, like
Yep.
we should sit down one of these days and kind of look at that and make the
Yeah, it'd
video
be
for
funny
the
to do.
yeah, it'd be very interesting. But at the same point, not the only news that the Cincinnati Bengals have been
No,
in the news for.
they may not even be the Cincinnati Bengals in a couple of years. It came out this week. We know they've been in negotiations with the city of Cincinnati and with the owners of the stadium to get a new deal done, to renew the contract. And as it stands right now, nothing's gotten done. And as of June 28th of this year is the deadline for them to accept a 2-year extension that's in the contract that they can, so it's sort of like an option that they had written into the contract. So if they accept that, then they've got 2 more years on the deal. But if they let that date pass without accepting it, then the Cincinnati Bengals, without a new
Almost.
deal, have nowhere to play football as of June 28th, 2026, which means they could be out of Cincinnati by the 2026 season, which is insane to think about. I mean, I'm sure a deal will get done, but it's crazy to think about it coming this close down to the wire, and I don't think the organization's asking for much. They're asking for, the stadium to be renovated and have some upgrades put in because they just can't keep up with the rest of the league on facilities and just perks and bonuses for fans that are coming in. Like it's an old, outdated stadium, and they know the city of Cincinnati doesn't want to build a new one, which they're fine with, but they want renovations done. And there's just been so much pushback that the ownership's looking at it going, oh, we might have to consider our other options. And they've kind of got the wild card there because they can sit back and shop around and go, so which city wants to build a stadium for Joe Burrow to play in? And you're gonna have a lot of cities going, me please. Like from places like St. Louis that lost a team. There's other cities throughout America that would want a team and with Joe Burrow. And we've talked about the NFL doing a European expansion. We could see that being the first team that expands over there and decides to go overseas, and we see our first European team. It's going to be interesting to see if that deadline passes without a deal done. It could get very dicey throughout the season. And who knows, that could start to cause a distraction for the team itself, not knowing if their families are going to be still living in Cincinnati in a year's time, or if they have to start thinking about moving, uprooting their kids, putting them in new schools, all this stuff. So, I mean, these are very real distractions for the players as well. So, this could get very messy in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I look at this whole thing. I think regardless they will sign that 2-year deal. I think the Bengals
Yeah.
will sit back and they're gonna have discussions all the way up until that date. I'm sure of it. But the Bengals will likely go, if you're not going to agree with this stadium renovation, we will sign the 2-year deal. But then for that entire next season, it's going to be who is going to build a stadium that is going to house our team. Now, it would likely be an East team or an East city that gets them, because you're not going to, for instance, put them in like Utah and have them
Well,
be the AFC North type situation. Like,
no, no. Odds are that would be the case. But like if those are the only options, it would come down to a slight restructure in the division. Like if they move too far outside of that area, then I'm sure the NFL would look at it and go, okay, well, look, we're gonna shift them to a different division, and we're gonna bring another team into the AFC North instead because it's just
yeah.
closer proximity.
No, at one point we did have the St. Louis Rams part of that NFC West
Mhm.
division, and so like it is possible to have a team halfway across the country from the rest of your teams at that point to ultimately have that going. But yeah, it's this Bengals organization. They got gift wrapped Joe Burrow.
Yep.
Like they were gifted the best thing that a team could ever be gifted, a generational prospect at the highest level. And he's come in, he brought the team to a Super Bowl, he's made the team relevant for the first time in 30 years, and they just keep squandering and just making these stupid style moves. And as someone who is part of a fan base who is watching them go through stadium conversations, is it going to be in Arlington Heights, is it going to be on the lakeside, where is it going to be? I've just been sitting back saying, just build it in Arlington Heights, you have the land there. It's
Mhm.
not like you're going to be the Arlington Heights Bears. It's a suburb outside of Chicago. It's a 10-minute drive. Like, people can get there. It's not that big of a deal. You have trains to get there. Like, with Cincinnati, I'm just going like, man, stop being cheap bastards. And I say this to all ownership. I I grew up a Boston Celtics fan in the NBA as a kid. I don't really watch the NBA now, so it doesn't really matter. But the show Winning Times, it's about the Lakers dynasty that was built in the early 80s, late 70s. And you got to see Jerry Buss, the owner of the Lakers, for a long time. And he basically says, I'm coming in, I'm buying this team, we're competing for championships, and winning is all that matters. And I go, that's what every single ownership group should do. It shouldn't be
Mhm.
like, don't talk to me about ticket prices. Don't talk to me about the fan experience. Talk to me about winning championships. And I genuinely think it should be a rule that if you are an owner, it should be every dollar that you have should be going towards trying to win a championship. Now, you can talk to me about stadiums, and we've had this discussion before. Billionaires shouldn't be asking for public funding to build a stadium. It's probably better for you in the long run as the owner of the team to own the stadium, because you can get so much more revenue, and it
Yep.
just makes it a hell of a lot easier. But yeah, the Bengals, man, they're just doing some dumb shit.
Well, and I mean that's just it. Look at the Washington Commanders right now. Dan
Yep.
Snyder still owns that stadium, so he still makes revenue
Hmm.
off of the Commanders playing there. They have to pay him to play games there, which is, I know, a big issue there where they're looking at trying to move to a new stadium, trying to maybe build a new
Yeah,
stadium
they're in the
or
process of
renovate an older
building a new
one.
stadium.
Yeah. And so I mean that's a very real thing, but it's something I don't get because we see it in every league where it's, yeah, we want 60% of tax dollars to fund this, and then we're going to put the price of tickets up higher anyway. And it's like, so the taxpayers can't even go and enjoy the games because they're priced out of the market.
Yeah, the
It's
city that
absolutely
you and
insane.
I live in, there's a
Yep.
new NHL arena, and we've just only found out this week that even the taxpayers are going to be paying what
Hmm.
the ownership group said they were going to pay. So it's basically, instead of what we thought was going to be 40, it's likely going to be like 80% of the
Yep.
taxpayers doing that. And it's really, really just dumb shit over, billionaires squabbling over money that they currently already have. And
Mhm.
it's really, really annoying.
Well, and that's just it. It it's because capitalism wins, man. It stopped being about winning games and winning championships. It started you win by making more profit than the other guy.
Yeah.
That's what it's become. It's how can we make the most profit off of this team, even if we don't win, And we see it in other leagues, like the Pittsburgh Pirates are one of the worst for it, where the owners even stated publicly that, hey, I don't care if we have a win because I still turn a profit even if we have a horrible losing season. And that's all that matters to me is turning profit. As long as I have profit at the end of it, I don't care how the team does. And that is just the wrong outlook for fans who want to see competitive sports.
You know what is the best thing for bringing in a lot of revenue to a sports team? Winning. Like, is anyone gonna tell me that 20-year Patriots dynasty didn't
Mm-hmm.
fill Robert Kraft's pockets with
Oh,
billions of
100%.
dollars in revenue? Are we not talking about how the Eagles owner is getting a shit ton of money, or how the 49ers ownership group has got a ton of money, and this, that, and the other thing? Like
No,
you can't
the
tell me
point I
that.
make is that there's some of these guys who basically just look at the spreadsheet, and as long as the number at the bottom isn't red, they don't care about what the product is on the field.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with
Yeah.
you. I'm basically just saying, I'm basically speaking to an
Yep.
owner and going, you know what the best way to make sure that number isn't red?
Mm-hmm.
Winning.
Yep.
Winning a championship. Like, you can't tell me that the Rams ownership group is upset that they spent years and years chasing a championship and were a good team all over, and they won a championship and they're still one of the best teams in the NFL. I don't think they're upset about that at all.
Nope.
No, it's really, really dumb with the ownership group. And
It is. It's
yeah,
just wild.
some more stuff that happened. Again, some smaller stuff. The Chicago Bears ended up signing Case Keenum to be a backup quarterback. Him and Tyson Bagent are going to be competing for that number 2 role, and I really, really like that move. I think getting a
Mhm.
veteran presence in that locker room to kind of help Caleb Williams and say, listen, you go to Case. He's seen a lot of stuff. He's been in the league a long time. Any questions that you have, you can instantly just walk over to him and be like, what's up? Like, why did I make that bad read? Uh, Pittsburgh Steelers are still doing Steelers
Nothing.
things. Like,
Yeah.
the conversation with Aaron Rodgers, the owner for the Steelers said he wants Aaron Rodgers, and we just kind of sit back and go, no, that would be
Right.
bad. Mike Tomlin said yesterday, I think, he thinks he is more than happy to have Mason Rudolph as starting quarterback this year. And I think both of us sat back and went, yeah,
I said that weeks ago when they first signed Rudolph back, and
yeah,
I just said, okay, fine. We missed out on the bigger names. We got Mason Rudolph back. That's who we drafted 7 years ago to take this role anyway. Let's give him his shot. He never got his shot, and so let's give it to him. And then they started chasing Aaron Rodgers again, and I was like, oh, why?
yeah,
Um, but other thing, there have been other rumors out there and other things happening around the league that make me think other options are possible. I know the Dallas Cowboys this week, they made a trade with the Patriots to
for
grab
Joe
Joe Milton,
Milton.
which frustrated me because, I said weeks ago we should try and trade for Joe Milton. And they were like, oh, well, the price is a third round pick, but Dallas only paid a fifth. And so it's like, what is going on behind the scenes in Pittsburgh that other teams are getting deals for cheaper? Other players are signing other places for cheaper, that they're not wanting to come into Pittsburgh. There's something that's got to be going on behind the scenes that's causing this, and it's definitely worrisome. But at the same time, that trade for the Dallas Cowboys, that has to send a signal to Dak Prescott. The fact that they're making a trade for another young quarterback and bringing him in when there's already been people saying, hey, Cooper Rush might be a better option. This Dak
Jerry
Prescott
Jones said it.
overpriced. Exactly. And so there have been rumors going around that Dak Prescott might not even be in Dallas at the start of this season with some of those, trades and comments that have been being made. And ultimately, we talked about Micah Parsons earlier. They can't afford to re-sign Micah Parsons unless they move on from a contract like Dak Prescott's or CeeDee Lamb's. And so it's very possible we see something like that where Dak Prescott gets moved elsewhere. And obviously, a prime landing spot would be the Pittsburgh Steelers, being that they're so needy for a top tier quarterback.
I just don't see the Cowboys moving on from Dak Prescott. Like, again, I think the trade for Joe Milton is one of those things where you look at it and go, okay, this is them just getting a young looking backup, and it's the Patriots saying, you know what, we found our guy, we have no need for Joe Milton. That's why I always kind of look at it and go, if you can afford to draft two quarterbacks, one really high up and one a little bit later, do it, because you never know. Look at what happened with the Commanders. They drafted RG3, they also drafted Kirk Cousins, who ended up having the better career for the Commanders or for Washington.
I mean, arguably RG3 with those injuries, that's really what hindered his career.
Yep, undoubtedly. But at the same point, you can still sit back and say Kirk Cousins was a better quarterback for the Washington organization than RG3 was. And again, it worked out that Drake May was good for the Patriots this year. He got a fake Pro Bowl. And it's one of those very, very interesting conversations to have happen. It's an interesting move that Dallas would go out there and trade for a guy like that. I know Cooper Rush signed somewhere else. I can't remember where.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they needed a backup quarterback. But yeah, like Joe Milton was a guy that I could see someone taking a flyer on to potentially throw into that role. But yeah, the conversation when it comes to you and the Steelers saying there's something wrong in that building, everyone already knows what the problem is. Everyone already does. And people don't want to really say it. And it's the head coach.
Yep.
Mike, we've been saying it for... I've been saying it for years. And I think this year was kind of the first year where you kind of finally came around, where it was, Mike Tomlin's a brilliant coach. He's a Hall of Fame guy. He's going to make it to the Hall of Fame. But these last 6 years have been just horrific for management. Yeah, he's a great leader of men. You know what doesn't win you Super Bowls in today's football? Just being a great leader of men. You need a quarterback, you need a play caller, and oftentimes you need a play caller to be your head coach because you're going to have that consistency. And, well, unfortunately, the Steelers don't have that.
That's been the issue, is there just hasn't been anybody out there that the Steelers can jump to.
Yeah.
Because we talked about it at length a couple of times where it's like, yeah, I agree, Mike Tomlin, it's time to move on from him. But for who?
Yeah, no, totally.
It's always the issue. It's always for who.
It's a catch-22 situation. It's a catch-22 situation where if you fire Mike Tomlin and whoever you bring in, they could easily be much, much worse. But at the same time, you're also looking at the Steelers organization going, well, if we keep Mike Tomlin, we're just going to stay in the exact same spot. We're jogging on a treadmill is essentially what happens.
Yeah, and that's why, I'm looking at this season, depending on how it goes. Like, I'm going to be watching a lot of Buffalo Bills football this year because I'm looking at Joe Brady over there in Buffalo and what he's been doing with Josh Allen and a lack of talent around him, really, because it's been Allen and Cook and then just a bunch of piecework guys, and he's been getting it done. And so I'm going to be watching that really closely and really, I've been pounding the table going, I think Joe Brady needs to be the guy that Pittsburgh's really looking at to bring in to replace Mike Tomlin and be the next head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
You know the guy I think is going to be a dark horse for the Steelers team that I think would be such a good fit is Thomas Brown. And again, he was the interim head coach for the Bears this year. Didn't have a lot of success while he was doing that. I am still pounding the table for Thomas Brown. I think he's going to be a head coach. I think he's going to be a good head coach. And I just think the cards were stacked against him. They were
Yeah.
stacked against him when he ultimately had this opportunity. I think him as the Patriots tight end coach this particular season, again, the tight ends coach is an often a big signal that a guy is either going to be an offensive play caller or he's going to be a head coach down the line, because they have both that communication in the run game and the pass game. I said it this year. Thomas Brown is the offensive version of Mike Tomlin. He just hasn't had a fair shot yet. And I could very easily see, if the Patriots have a very good year and they make some good moves, Thomas Brown, again, this is a guy that has head coaching experience in the NFL. You want to bring in an offensive minded guy, you want to try to keep it similar to Mike Tomlin at least. That would be a great guy. But yeah, Joe Brady, I think, is probably right now the top option as a head coach going into next season. I don't think he's as good as a Ben Johnson was coming out this cycle,
No.
but he is a very, very smart, intelligent guy that has had a lot of success. Now at Ellis, everywhere that he's had success, he's had an elite level quarterback. At LSU, it was Joe Burrow, and with the Bills, it is Josh Allen. So the Steelers are gonna need to get that situation figured out. But if they can get a guy like Archie Manning,
Yep.
you're gonna be pretty happy.
Even if you only have Mike Tomlin still, they still have to find that elite quarterback. That's the only way you win in this league.
Yes.
You know, the reason they were so good for so long is because they had Ben Roethlisberger.
Yep.
You know, like they had an elite level quarterback.
First ballot Hall of
It's
Famer.
just the way this league functions. If you don't have that top guy, then it doesn't matter what else you have.
Yep.
You know, you might luck out and be able to run and win a Super Bowl with a backup. You know, like if you already had a decent team there and you got there and somebody gets hurt, it can happen.
Yeah,
But you're
i.e. the
not.
Philadelphia Eagles with Nick Foles.
That's exactly who I'm referring to. Yeah.
Oh.
You know, it's just that is a situation that no matter who the head coach is, that has to be resolved. And I know there has been talk from Omar Khan and what he's looking at. The reason he let a lot of players walk this year is because he wanted those compensatory picks.
Yep,
And
he
he's
wants
been
the
getting
comp
them.
pick. Yep.
You know, he wants those comp picks, and he's gotten a lot. I think we have 4 or 5 going into this season. And honestly, he's already stated looking at next season at possibly doing the same thing. So we might see a situation of him letting a TJ Watt go elsewhere with the potential of getting a very big comp pick
The
out of
best
that.
you can get though is a third rounder.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's one where I could see us finally see a team use the transition tag
Yep.
as opposed to the franchise tag, because you throw that transition tag on a guy and then he signs elsewhere, you get more than that third round. You get, depending on the contract amount, you can get a first round pick as well. You know, and that's the situation with the TJ Watt, where if you do that,
Yeah.
I could see that's the way his mind is working right now. He said that's sort of what he's looking at, because we need additional picks going into the next several drafts so that we have the capital to trade up and get one of these elite quarterbacks that's coming into the league.
Yeah,
because
and
he knows this
you
team
can't
is
win in
always
this
good.
league.
We build a great team. We don't often pick inside the top 15 unless we trade up to do so.
Yeah, and I will say this: if the Steelers are subpar going into trade deadline week, you need to trade TJ. It'll be a bitter
100%.
pill to swallow, but
Yeah.
even if you only get one first round pick for TJ Watt,
Mhm.
that is better to get that now as opposed to getting nothing for him in the future. Because again, he's on the last year of his deal, and we've talked about this Steelers situation a handful of times. We'll continue to talk about it, but yeah, it's been a very interesting week of football, and the ownerships. Some of the owners have been making some interesting claims. More stuff will trickle out. Again, the draft is quickly approaching. It's only 2 or 3 weeks away at this point. So get ready for a big couple of weeks coming up here soon. Again, we're not going to sit back and say everything about every prospect going to visit this team again. I know Colorado yesterday had their pro day. They didn't even call it a pro day. They called it the Colorado Showcase because they have to be different.
Yeah, and that's just it. We're at that time, the owners' meetings we talked about, those happened earlier this week. So there were a few slight changes that were approved that I agree with as well. The kickoffs, touchbacks have been moved from the 30 to the 35-yard line, which we both predicted was going to happen
Yep.
because the rate of return was still too low. I
The
don't
digital
think,
sticks is happening as well, where
yep,
we're still going to have the chain gain out there, but it's going to be actually meant for a
exactly.
digital line, which we've been saying for years now. Just get rid of the 60-year-old chain, guys. Use
Yeah.
the technology that is there, and
Well,
that goes
especially
through.
with the speed of the game, we've seen more of those guys getting injured as plays go to the sidelines. So
Yep.
yeah, but I mean, back to those kickoff rules. I don't know if that 5 yards is going to be enough to make a change this year, but I think because we saw that, we will likely see the same change next year where they move it from the 35 to the 40. That is the point where I think we start seeing teams striving to return that ball instead of kicking touchbacks.
Yeah.
We're seeing teams adjusting and making sure they're kicking to like that 2 to 5 yard line range because they don't want the touchback and the other team getting it at the 40. I think that will be the line that finally breaks it and brings the kick game back into football properly. I don't know if 30 to 35 is going to be quite enough.
Yeah, I don't think them moving it to the 40-yard line will ever happen. What I think will ultimately be the best way to fix the kickoff rule is you need to move the kicker as far back as they can possibly go and basically just say if you boot this into the end zone, you are putting maximum, like you're going to have to kick like 70 yards to get it into that sort of thing, because again, the kickoff, you want it to be safer, and the way that they have it lined up, it makes it a hell of a lot safer. Just continue to
Yep.
move the kicker back. Don't actually move the yardage for the touchback up. Move the kicker back. Force them to have a bigger, stronger leg, because again, we want to see that. As someone who grew up watching Devin Hester, you want to see kickoffs. They can be so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, moving the kicker back could work, but really it comes down to it. You're a skilled player. Just learn how to boot that ball a little bit higher in the air so it doesn't travel quite as far. Quit
Yep.
booting the line drives and
Get the ball
get
in
some
the
height on
air.
that.
Yep. Put a pop
That
fly
that
up.
way it's landing where they're not going to take that touchback. Because if
Yep.
you can get it to land right in that 1 to 3 yard sweet spot, they can't take a touchback.
Yep.
And that's the way to do it. So it's some growing pains, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them move it to the 40 if the return rate stays as low as it was this year or only improves by like 3 or 4%.
Yeah.
I can see them coming back and going, okay, let's do another 5 yard increment. I don't think it'll ever reach the midfield mark, but I can definitely see it reaching that 40 yard because they want to find a way to get it back into the game.
Yep.
And this new kickoff layout, I think, works. They just need to keep tweaking it little bit by
Yep.
little bit until we see that return rate go back up into the 70% range. Because lately it's been down around like 20 to 40%, and it's not enough.
Even lower than that 20%. Like
Yeah.
how, like it was greatly improved this year, which thank goodness for. But you look at the year prior to last season where it was what, like less than 10% of
Yeah.
kickoffs were actually returned, where it was basically why even actually kick the ball off at that point. It just seems dumb.
Hmm.
But yeah, like the kickoff rule, it's still in its incubation stage. It was brought up last year, and both of us were in favor of the rule change because again, the kickoff, the big one of the biggest reasons why they wanted to change it was player safety, and there
Yep.
was very high level of evidence where a lot of players got hurt on those kickoff returns. This changes it, all obviously having the kicker much farther back and that sort of situation. But yeah, they're going to tweak things. They're going to get it right in the next 5 years. The kickoff will be back to being a proper play. Hopefully the NFL doesn't ban the tush push because I still think that's fucking stupid. But
Yeah.
we'll see. But that is going to do it here today, guys. Again, not a heavy news week. A few things that we kind of heard that we were like, okay, like this is something to talk about. Next couple of weeks will probably be much more draft center because again, that is coming up really, really quickly. I know I'm excited at Sterling. I know you're interested to
Yep.
see what your Steelers are going to do and who they're going to draft at 21.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't checked out the mock draft that Brendan did up, we recorded a couple weeks ago. It's a 3-round mock draft, so by all means go check that out if you haven't yet, because that was an interesting take. We got to see what Brendan's thinking we're gonna see over those first 3 rounds. So go check that out, please.
Yeah, and throughout this next couple week, I'll be doing a bunch of individual teams 7-round mock draft. I know I've recorded one for the Bears. I will be recording one for the Steelers here relatively soon. I will be doing one for the Seahawks. Again, basically just trying to nail down all of 1IQ's fandom teams. And yeah, you'll see a bunch of those coming up here in the future. But that is all here for us today, guys. Thank you all very much for watching. For Sterling, I'm Brendan, saying peace.